Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. And today, we're zeroing in on a fascinating bacterium, Bacillus lentus.
Actually, I think it's officially Lederbergia lentus now.
Oh, really? Lederbergia. Okay, well, we've got a lot to unpack here, so we've pulled in some heavy hitters for this deep dive. Notebook LM, Gemini, Microbe Wiki, even Microbe Canvas.
That's right. We wanted to make sure we covered all the bases, especially for our medical microbiologist listeners.
Exactly, because as you all know, even the seemingly harmless bacteria can have some tricks up their sleeve, and Lederbergia lentus or Bacillus lentus is no exception.
I think it's so important to really dive into the nuances of these organisms because the more we know, the better equipped we are to handle, well, whatever they might throw at us, right?
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics. What are we dealing with here?
Okay, so picture this. You're looking under a microscope and you see these rod-shaped bacteria, gram-positive, of course.
Okay, classic gram-positive rods. Got it.
But here's the thing. They've got these elliptical spores, and they're hanging out in a paracentral position within the sporangum.
Now, I remember from Micro 101 that sporangium swelling can be a thing with some Bacillus species. Is that something we see here too?
Yeah, you might actually see some slight swelling in the sporangium. It's not always super obvious, but it's a good thing to keep in mind.
Okay, good to know. So we've got these spore-forming, rod-shaped bacteria. Where do we typically find them in the wild?
Well, they're pretty common in soil.
Soil, huh? So not exactly something we're encountering in, say, a sterile hospital environment.
Not usually, but remember, spores can be incredibly resilient. They can survive in some pretty harsh conditions.
That's true. So even though it's primarily a soil dweller, we can't rule out the possibility of it popping up in other places.
Exactly. Plus, we need to consider its growth requirements. This is a bacterium that needs oxygen to survive. It's an obligate aerobe.
Right? So no oxygen, no growth. Makes sense. Now, I was looking at the microbe canvas entry for Lederbergia lentus, and they mentioned some interesting culture characteristics.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, apparently it grows quite happily on blood agar, forming these nice opaque flat colonies, glossy surface, entire margins, the whole 9 yards. But get this, it won't grow on Brucella blood agar, at least not without antibiotics.
Ah, yes, that's a key differentiating factor for us in the lab. That one little detail can help us distinguish Lederbergia lentus from other Bacillus species.
So it's all about context.
Exactly. See, a seemingly insignificant detail like that can become incredibly important when you're trying to make a diagnosis.
That's fascinating. I'm really starting to see how these seemingly minor details can have major implications. All right, so we know it's an aerobe. It's picky about its agar. What about its other characteristics? Does it, like, move around?
It does. It's motile.
Motile, huh? So it's got some get up and go.
And enzymatically speaking, it's catalase positive.
Okay, so it can break down hydrogen peroxide. But is it oxidase positive as well?
Actually, no. It's oxidase negative, and it's also lecithinase negative.
All right, starting to build a pretty good profile of this bacterium here. Now, let's get to the part that always gets me a little nervous. Pathogenicity.
Right. So here's the thing. As far as we know, Lederbergia lentus is currently considered non-pathogenic to humans.
Non-pathogenic, meaning it doesn't cause disease. But I'm sensing a but here.
Well, there's always a but in microbiology, isn't there?
That's true. Things are constantly evolving, and what's harmless today might be a problem tomorrow.
Exactly. And one thing that makes Lederbergia lentus particularly interesting from a medical microbiology standpoint is its antibiotic resistance profile.
Ah, here we go. Antibiotic resistance, the elephant in the room.
You could say that. Specifically, Lederbergia lentus is known to be resistant to colistin.
Colistin. That's a pretty big deal, especially since it's often used as a last resort against multi-drug-resistant bacteria.
You're absolutely right. And what makes this resistance even more concerning is that it's intrinsic. It's part of Lederbergia lentus's natural makeup.
So it's not something it acquired from other bacteria, it's just naturally resistant.
Yep. Which makes you wonder, what if this bacterium, which we currently consider harmless, were to evolve further?
It's a scary thought, right? And it really highlights why staying informed about these less studied bacteria is so crucial.
I completely agree. We need to be vigilant. We need to understand these organisms, even the ones that aren't causing trouble right now, because that could change.
Okay, so potential pathogenicity aside, is there anything good about Lederbergia lentus? Any potential benefits?
Actually, yeah. There's been some really promising research on its potential for bioremediation.
Bioremediation, so using it to clean up pollutants and things like that.
Exactly. Some strains of Lederbergia lentus have shown a remarkable ability to break down certain pollutants, which could be a huge boon for environmental cleanup efforts.
Wow. So it could potentially go from a threat to a savior. Talk about a plot twist. It just goes to show you never know what you're going to find in the microbial world. All right, I think it's time to put your knowledge to the test. Ready for some exam questions?
Hit me.
Okay, first one. True or false, Lederbergia lentus loves oxygen and can't sit still?
That's true. It's motile and an obligate aerobe, meaning it needs oxygen to survive and is capable of movement.
Excellent. Next question. You're looking at a gram-stained slide under the microscope. What's the dead giveaway that you're looking at Lederbergia lentus?
Those elliptical spores in a paracentral position within the sporangium, a classic sign of Lederbergia lentus.
Perfect. All right, here's a tricky one. You're trying to culture a Bacillus species on Brucella blood agar, but nothing's growing. Could it be Lederbergia lentus?
It could. Remember, Lederbergia lentus won't grow on Brucella blood agar unless it contains antibiotics.
Nice catch. Next question. Which antibiotic is Lederbergia lentus known to resist?
Lederbergia lentus is resistant to colistin.
That's a big one. Okay, final question. If Lederbergia lentus is considered non-pathogenic, why should medical microbiologists even care about it?
Great question. It's all about being prepared. Even though it's currently considered non-pathogenic, understanding its unique characteristics, especially its resistance to colistin, is crucial for accurate identification, effective treatment strategies should its pathogenicity change, and for potentially leveraging its beneficial properties.
Wow, that was a great overview. I think we covered a lot of ground today. We talked about what Lederbergia lentus looks like, where it lives, how it grows, and even its potential for both harm and good.
And just like any good deep dive, we've come up with more questions than answers.
Exactly. Like, what sort of environmental pressures could potentially push this bacterium toward becoming pathogenic? And how can we harness its bioremediation capabilities without inadvertently creating new problems?
Those are great questions to ponder, and they highlight why we need to keep researching and learning.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, keep those brains buzzing. Until next time, happy microbe hunting.